Kelsey, stop it.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the Locked On Louisville podcast is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started. I told Kelsey to stop it, but truthfully, keep it going. Keep building that national championship contender. The Louisville Cardinals have landed a commitment from Virginia star transfer Isaac McKneely. Huge addition to the Cardinals offense. We'll discuss what he's going to bring to the table. We'll explain that despite Louisville having a crowded backcourt, I think that you're going to be able to make everyone happy. And then we'll talk about Kelsey walking the walk so far in the transfer portal. So it has been an extremely notable week for the Louisville men's basketball program. They got a commitment from Adrian Wooley out of Kennesaw State on Monday. They got a commitment from Ryan Conwell from Xavier on Tuesday. And now on Thursday, the Cardinals go 3 for 3 with their top targets, landing Virginia transfer Isaac McNeely. It was a really poorly kept secret in terms of the interest between both parties. It was very mutual, not really a well-kept secret. He visits this past weekend, and initially the thought is that it's going to come down between two ACC teams. It's either going to be Louisville or North Carolina. Well, over the duration of last weekend, we start to hear about North Carolina exiting the recruitment, and then you insert the Tennessee Volunteers, and he's adamant that he's going to take that visit, and he did. He visited Knoxville, and I thought, yeah, with Louisville adding two guards into the mix, Tennessee needing a guard, you saw what they had done with Dalton Connect and Chaz Lanier. It felt like he was going to end up in Knoxville because, well, logic would tell you that. Which sucked, though, because I was like, man, he's tailor-made for this offense. Like, you saw what Rain Smith was able to do this year. That could be Isaac McNeely next year, plus more, because I think Isaac is the better overall player. But he leaves Knoxville, doesn't commit yet, and all of a sudden you start to build up some hope, thinking, well, what if Louisville lands all three? Well, it was no secret that the Cardinals wanted to bring in all three. It's just hard to make everyone happy. Can you convince all of these players that were number one, number two scoring options at their previous destination to be able to sacrifice a little bit in exchange for a chance to have a ton of team success? And, well, credit to Kelsey and company for getting the job done. Isaac McNeely, this is an incredible addition to the Cardinals program. Let's look at the statistics. McNeely averaged 14.4 points a game this past season on 44% shooting from the field, 42% shooting from the three-point line, 81% from the free throw line, 2.7 rebounds, 2.9 assists per game, respectively, as the number one scoring option for the Virginia Cavaliers. Had to play a little bit out of position, had to play the one despite more so being a two. He's more of your prototypical two, but can, serve as a combo guard and handle the basketball when you need him to, which I think is going to help Louisville. More on that coming up here in the next segment. But like Rain Smith, McNeely projects to be one of the best three-point shooting specialists in the country next year. You look at the numbers from this past year. Keep in mind, all of these come from being like the focal point for opposing defenses. When you scout Virginia, you're thinking, okay, Isaac McKneely and Elijah Saunders. You focus on those two guys. So being the top guy, McNeely was still able to be extremely efficient. We mentioned the three-point shooting number, 42% from three. That was on 7.5 attempts in Power 5 basketball. That's great. That is absolutely incredible. That's elite. McNeely is one of the best shooters in the country. Most of his offense comes from above the break shooting. He shot 40% on the left side, 39% from the right side, 52% in the left corner. A lot of his offense, of course, is from the three-point line. 46% at the rim, not the greatest, but he did show the ability this season and throughout his career in Charlottesville to put the ball on the hardwood and get to the basket. That's where I think he kind of separates himself a little bit from Ryan Smith, because Ryan might be a pound-for-pound better shooter, although I don't know if you could fully say that 100%. But even if you think Ryan's a better shooter, Isaac is a better playmaker. He's a better driver. He's a better facilitator. So overall, he's the better basketball player. This is no disrespect to Ryan Smith, because what Ryan was able to do and come in this year and play the role that he played, I thought it was critical, because the offense that Pat Kelsey runs is tailor-made for an elite level shooter. It needs an elite level shooter to be the catalyst to get the offense going. So bringing in Isaac McNeely is incredible. And I mean, not to mention Wooley and Conwell can both shoot, so can Mikel Brown Jr. But I think that McNeely takes it up even a little bit further, because now you have 4 legitimate elite level three-point shooting options. But a little bit more on his shooting ability. 23 pointers made this year, deeper than 25 feet, so that limitless range is there. One thing that I'm extremely impressed with and I'm excited to see is how well he is able to come off of screens. He was in the 87th percentile in scoring off screens, 92nd percentile in spot-up situations, and get this, 97th percentile in catch and shoot. Remember how we talked about how good Ryan Conwell was? Isaac McNeely is almost as good. So you have some guys that can just light it up from the three-point range. And that's what you needed, right? One of the main things that you had to add to this program in the offseason was you needed to add a considerable amount of shooting. You had a couple of you had Ryan Smith, Chucky could hit the three-point shot, Terrence Edwards could hit the three-point shot, Javon Hadley was respectable, but you needed guys that put the fear in opposing defenses. Something else that is definitely a part of a trend, but Isaac McNeely with a 19% assist rate. The good news about what he's going to be asked to do at Louisville is that it's going to match his skill set more. He's not going to be asked to be the go-to lead ball handler and that primary facilitator. He can play off ball, which I think is where you're going to be able to maximize his strengths. And what better way to sell your role in this offense than having Ryan Smith involved in those meetings, which it seemed like there were some rumors out there that Ryan was involved with the meetings with Isaac and PK. And you've heard that Chucky Hepburn has been involved in trying to bring recruits onto campus. And it just goes back to this point of the power of the unit. And it's something that it's not talk. It's not cheap. It's not something that is shallow. It's something that has stuck its roots in the core of this program, and you're starting to see some of the fruits of that labor be delivered. So we'll talk here in a second about how the fit is going to work with 4 potentially elite options. But on the surface, Isaac McNeely is perfect for this offense. in this offense is perfect for Isaac McKneely because he's going to get a good amount of opportunity to not have to do too much, but I think he's going to raise his draft stock with the role that he's going to play. He's going to be a three-point specialist, a secondary ball handler, secondary creator and facilitator. And you're not going to have as much attention as you did the past couple of years having to be the focal point. But it was awesome to see Pat Kelsey and company get this commitment. I know that Chris Mack almost landed Isaac McNeely a couple of years ago before he decided to go play for Tony Bennett, but nice to see things come full circle. Love to see Isaac McNeely playing in the Derby City next year. But, and that's one thing I'll mention, he had 113.6 offensive rating on a 21% usage percentage, which is a pretty good numbers there. You brought in 3 players via the portal that are all extremely efficient and effective. But that begs the question, how do you make it work? You got a really crowded backcourt at the moment. Well, it's not going to be easy, but I trust Pat Kelsey and company. More on that when we come back on this Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Daylight savings snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through, whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or trying to keep up with your busy day. 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. With longer days, I love getting outside for a run. Tropical Burst, it has been my go-to for that quick boost. And you can get it on the go, whether I'm at a game or traveling. They're easy to grab and keeps me feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. If you need one now, however, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Card Nation, some pretty scary storms rolled through the Kentuckiana area and Western Kentucky, Central Kentucky on Wednesday evening. I hope that everyone is okay. Hope that no one had any storm damage. If anyone was affected by these storms, of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to you all. And just know that we're with you in these tough times. And I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. Tomorrow's show, we'll be talking about how Louisville has one of the best backcourts in the country now. That will be on the show tomorrow. Potentially a women's basketball commitment to talk about and a potential football commitment to talk about as well. We'll see if that news becomes available before we can record on Friday. But the main question now is centered around the fit. Like, it's great, Pat Kelsey going out and getting 3 potentially elite transfer portal guards, but now you're like, well, how do you make it work? I think that it goes without saying that this is the reason why Pat Kelsey and coaches across America make the big bucks, because they make the decisions like this and they make it work. And we've seen teams make it work. I don't think it should shock anyone that it's pretty clear that Louisville's going to go with a 3-guard lineup. They did last year when players went down. They started Rain, Terrence, and Chucky. You're going to start a combination of the 4 players that you have coming in. And, there's not many minutes to go around in the grand scheme of things. Like, there's only so many minutes. I think that there's, like, if you wanted to, you could play, McNeely, Mikel Brown Jr., Wooley, and Conwell all 30 minutes a game. Like, that is very possible. And that's a good number because you keep guys fresh and then you just rotate the front court. But What do you then do with guys like Kobe Rogers or potentially Corey Calker? Is that realistic to play 30? Potentially not, but you could also dock those minutes down just a hair and still be able to feature Kobe Rogers into the mix as sort of that backup point guard. Corey Calker, we still don't know. It seems like he's going to be on the roster. I haven't really seen too much confirmation, so we're going to just sort of play that by ear. But Corey Calker, I think, is a good reserve level guard that you can play in situations where there is foul trouble or someone gets hurt. It's good injury insurance. You have, at that point, 6 guards on the roster, and with 15 scholarships, I think that that's probably the most that you would take, unless you just have an international prospect in mind that you feel like you can redshirt and have ready for the 2026-27 season, which I'm perfectly okay with that. With 15 scholarships, not everyone's going to be able to play. Mikel Brown Jr. is going to start. I feel pretty comfortable in saying that. But now comes the question of, well, who gets left out? And it's not the largest concern, because with as much as a Pat Kelsey system emphasizes, substituting often, I know we didn't really get to see that much this year due to injury, but you're going to see players substitute in and out often and frequently to keep guys fresh. And it's not so much about who's starting as who's on the court at the end of the game. And I don't think you're going to see many 4-guard lineups all the time. But it wouldn't surprise me at times if you saw Mikel with the 3 transfers and maybe Sananda Fru, or if Javon Hadley comes back, or Kason Pryor comes back, or James Scott or Ali Khalifa, to where at the end of the game you're up a couple of scores with a minute to go and you need good ball handling and you need good free throw shooting. This is where that sort of comes into play. But that's very scenario specific. I think for the most part, it's not going to really matter who starts, because you still see players coming off the bench strategically at certain schools, and they play a good portion of the game. It really is just going to depend. I think Isaac McNeely is going to start. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if, and of course, this is hypothetical and not based on anything that I've heard, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a player like Adrian Wooley come off the bench as the 6th man. And the reason for that is we have seen this year at Auburn, I like to compare it to the Tahad Pettiford situation. Pettiford doesn't start the majority of games for the Tigers, but he's a spark off the bench that's going to be able to, give you that energy. And I think with the veteran guys that you have coming in, Conwell and McNeely, who have played Power 5 basketball, I think that they're going to be easier to put into your put into the rotation right away. And of course, look, I'm not suggesting that Wooley is going to struggle at the Power 5 level, because he's one of the best guards in mid-major basketball. He's going to be really good here. I think that there might be a little bit rougher of a transition period, because he is still a younger player. He's only going to be a sophomore. I'm not saying, of course, that it's going to be a rough year for him, but I think it's just going to be an easier transition for the 2 veterans that have played at this level versus maybe a younger guy that you can, sort of allow to get acclimated and be that spark off the bench. And of course, like I mentioned, in a Pat Kelsey system, when you're rotating as much as you are and you're substituting so frequently, it doesn't matter so much about who starts. And I think that was probably the selling point, because getting all these guys to buy in, hard to do. Really hard to do. But with this system, you're like, hey, look, you might not start, but you're still going to play a good amount of minutes. You're going to be able to showcase yourself. You're going to be able to put yourself on the map. And credit to the coaching staff for making that happen. people have talked about Kobe Rogers in the comments. I think that Kobe is going to be a really good reserve option. I don't buy that he's going to start over Mikel, like some people are suggesting, but he averaged 9.7 points per game and 4.6 rebounds in his only season at the College of Charleston. Came off the bench for the most part, but actually started 18 of 31 games, so technically not, but averaged 22 minutes a game. I think that he's going to be a nice option off the bench that's able to get downhill and get toward the basket. I really just like the guard depth. And then Corey Calker is a guy that you can put into the mix if someone gets in foul trouble. If he is able to, start to play really well, then, we can talk about expanding. But you've got 3 guard spots and, a ton of rotation. But this is a potentially elite backcourt. In my opinion, it's one of the best backcourts in the country, and we'll discuss that more tomorrow. But before we get out of here, got to talk about Pat Kelsey. Not just talking the talk, walking the walk as well. We'll discuss on this final segment of the Thursday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. The NCAA tournament felt like it came and went. The Final Four starts this week. FanDuel has been giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Well, you still have time. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly with no waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action while you still can for the Final Four. It's an honor to tell you all that this past month, March, was the largest viewership month of the Locked On Louisville podcast since I started it back in August 2021. Like, you all rocked the viewership numbers, and the subscriber numbers took a jolt and they jumped up a ton. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe, drop your comments in the section below. I always like to connect with the fan base and talk about, Cardinal sports, but definitely appreciate you all for making us your first listen. It doesn't go unnoticed nor unappreciated. Speaking of unnoticed nor unappreciated, Pat Kelsey just gets it. He just gets it. He shows that he understands the fan base. He understands the community. He legitimately cares. Now, year one was a good beginning to the revival. We got everything started, right? We got everything going. But I think that the opening round of the tournament just kind of reiterated that as sentimental as this season is, we've still got a ways to go. We have to take that next step forward. And it starts in the offseason. You have to put together the roster to compete for a national title or at least get to the second weekend. And how do you do that? Well, right after that tournament loss, Pete Nakos of On3 Sports put out an article suggesting that Louisville had about $8 to $10 million to work with for the transfer portal in the NIL war chest. Now, whether or not that was an accurate number or not didn't matter. But what it did signify was that Louisville, according to their words, is going all in. They're going to give Pat Kelsey everything he needs to succeed. And it may be a little bit worried, I will say, just because if you don't knock it out of the park, I think the fan base gets a little bit uneasy, but we don't have to worry about that because not only did Pat Kelsey talk the talk, he also has walked the walk. Teams across the country have deep NIL pockets. Don't fool yourself. With Big East schools not having a ton of football, so basketball's getting a ton of the funding. SEC schools have deep pockets. Big Ten schools have deep pockets. There are some ACC schools, Duke, North Carolina, that have deep pockets. Louisville wasn't going to be one of the only teams with money out there. Let's get that out of the way. So at that point, it takes being a salesman, selling your program as a means to allowing a player to be uber successful, it's key. You're walking the walk. You've shown that this week. Well, you really started that back in January when you got Mikel Brown Jr., but in the portal, Wooley was a player that many just kind of penciled in as going to Auburn or Alabama. I mean, he's from Tuscaloosa. Everyone thought he was going to go to the SEC. Louisville gets the first visit. There's people that are like, oh, it's just a placeholder. He's going to visit there, and he'll leave and go visit an SEC school and commit somewhere closer to home. Pat Kelsey's like, yeah, okay, bet. Wooley commits. The rationale from opposing fan bases as well. When you overspend for a guy and you put all your NIL budget into one player, of course you're going to get them. And then you insert Ryan Conwell from Xavier. According to some, viewed as one of, if not the best two guard in the portal. Elite two guard. From Indianapolis. Visits Indiana first. People on the Indiana side said, nah, he's not going to make it to the Louisville visit. He's not going to. Well, he did. And he commits later that day. Another big-time program you go toe-to-toe with and win against. And then Isaac McKneely, who I think in this situation, it's low-hanging fruit in terms of how you compete against Louisville. Well, they've got 3 guards already. The opportunity's not going to be there like there would be here. You saw what we did with Chaz Lanier and Dalton Connect. We've had more success than them in the past 10 years. And we're in the SEC. Come be our star, or one of our stars. Now I'm going to go to Louisville. Another toe-to-toe victory against a big-time program for Pat Kelsey. And this one wasn't easy. This one wasn't easy at all. Now, to the contrary, it's kind of difficult to be able to spin that and pitch it a certain way to get all 3 of those guys to buy in. Again, what are we talking about? We're talking about buying into the power of the unit. And look, of course, I'm not naive. You have to have the NIL package make sense. And Louisville does have, a pretty good NIL war chest, but it's not just that. Like, you have to be able to sell the opportunity as well. And that's a great job. We saw it all off season last year about how Pat Kelsey got some transfers to buy into a guy who had not coached the Power 5 level and a program that hadn't been in the tournament since 2019. And they got Louisville back to the tournament. They did a great job sort of paving the way for Pat Kelsey to have a ton of success in this transfer portal window, and we're starting to see that. So coming up tomorrow, we're going to talk about some of the fruits of that labor and how Louisville has one of the best backcourts in college basketball now and more. We'll see you then. Everyone have a great day. Go Cards.